numbers will of course change depending on what stage you're at, but you want to make sure you maintain the healthier levels of where you would be, you know, if you were in your, let's say, low 30s or mid 20s.
Okay.
Exactly. Because having an imbalance in hormones will make it much harder to lose weight.
It also makes it harder to sleep because I started using creams and it helped
And
a lot.
good, very good. Yep, exactly. So using creams, hormone creams, makes it better for sleep too. It's true, a lot of sleep issues are related to low hormonal levels as well. Okay, and then cortisol is a hormone, which of course we know is the stress hormone. So measuring your cortisol levels, and you can measure it in blood, you can also measure it in urine. Urine is far more accurate because it tracks you in a 24-hour period, and that's what you really want to, and you know, to really follow. So it's called a 24-hour urinary cortisol. Okay, because that's when people have very high cortisol levels, they get the belly fat, and that's both in men and in women. Okay, so that's where the cortisol, and that's all stress related. Stress related and lack of sleep, both of those affect our cortisol levels. So that makes a huge difference, a really big difference. Okay, and then somebody was asking about blood sugar. Basically, blood sugar, the fasting blood sugar first thing in the morning should be below 100. Okay, for optimal fat loss. So if you're at 120, that's too high. So you want to be less than 100. And if you can maintain around 80, 85, that's usually ideal for maintaining weight and for losing weight as well. Okay, sedentary lifestyle. I mean, everyone knows that that's pretty obvious, right? If you don't work out, you don't exercise, you're not going to lose weight, you're going to gain weight, especially if you don't change your eating habits at the same time. So activity is very important, but it's very important not only to just do cardio, you need to combine it with weights as well. Okay, because the weight training is what helps to build muscle, and muscle is what burns fat. Okay, doing cardio does not build muscle. It burns calories and it will burn some fat, but it won't build muscle. So really adding in the weight training is very important. Okay, lack of healthy fats. You need fat to burn fat. Okay, some people think, oh, I might as well go on a fat-free diet and I'll just lose weight. Yes, you will lose weight, but you're not going to be at a healthy weight loss. So it's very important to do the healthy fats. And the healthy fats would be olive oil, and you of course want to use extra virgin olive oil, not the light olive oil. Okay, big difference between light olive oil and the extra virgin olive oil, because the light olive oil is very processed. Okay, so there's no nutrition at all in light olive oil. And it's processed usually with chemicals, and that's even worse. And then of course avocado, those of you who can have avocado, that's a very healthy source of good fats. Nuts, raw nuts, not roasted, not even dry roasted nuts, because the oil has to be raw, not roasted. So almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, those are some examples of really healthy fats. Grapeseed oil, some of you might be using grapeseed oil from grapes. Okay, that's another very healthy fat. But you have to be very careful because a lot of the grapeseed oil in the market is actually extracted through solvents. So what I normally, there's one company we know called Salute Santé. It's sold through Whole Foods, and that brand is definitely done without chemicals, and that's a much healthier grapeseed oil to use. And then the fish oils, which we talked about earlier too.
Also, I've read though with olive oil that if you heat it too high, that's not good for you also.
Very good. Yeah, actually they found it's pretty stable up to about 450 degrees. But of course, less is better. So I usually recommend using it more on salad. You know, and then whenever you're cooking or anything, using a moderate to low heat is always better.
325, Dina.
Is it 325?
Yes.
Okay. Because I know that there's been a lot of
How do you
conflict.
know how high it is?
Well, the thing is, it shouldn't be
If it
smoky.
smokes, it's bad.
Yeah.
As soon as the oil starts to smoke, that's when it's really unhealthy. Exactly.
And also coconut oil is supposed to be good to fry with? Or?
Coconut oil, you have to be very careful because it has to be really pure and really unhydrogenated, and it should be raw. Okay, and for some people, coconut oil actually has a clogging effect on their blood. So yeah, I mean, so it's not really suitable for everybody, but for some people, yes, they'll do well with it, but not for everybody. Whereas something like olive oil is really across the board, everybody seems to do very well with it. Sesame seed oil, as long as it's not roasted. Yes, or toasted, exactly. So it needs to be raw. So remember, fats need to be raw, not toasted or cooked. Very important. Okay, and then sugar and sugar substitutes. Okay, how many of you know that sugar substitutes actually increase your appetite? And your appetite for more sugar. So we're talking about Equal, we're talking about Sweet and Low, we're talking about Splenda, all these different sugar substitutes. If you are concerned about sugar, it's better to go for something like stevia or Truvia. Some of you are familiar with Truvia. There's a lot of new different forms of stevia on the market. So something like that as a sugar substitute would be fine.
The Truvia is okay.
Yes, Truvia is okay. Yeah.
Xylitol.
Xylitol, the sugar alcohols get metabolized to the
We don't
liver.
have it, but I.
So that's the only concern with it for some people. They may not metabolize it very well. But it doesn't have the harmful effects as sugar normally would on blood sugar levels. What about honey? The problem with honey is that it has double the calories of, let's say, just straight sugar. So you just have to be careful with the amount that you use, and it needs to be raw honey, not just any honey. And then agave is good, and the same thing, by the way, be very careful, because if you notice on some of the labels for agave, it does not say raw. So you want to make sure that the agave you buy says raw on the label. Okay, so that's very important. Did you have a question? So,
What's the difference between, I went to see the agave syrup you said I could have, there's that dark amber and the light.
right,
matter?
it's just different types of agave, but the key thing is to make sure that it says raw.
Oh, yes.
That's the key thing. And then if you do sugar in any form, the best form would be the turbinado sugar. Okay, so not brown sugar, because brown sugar is actually white sugar colored with caramel. Okay, so it has to be the turbinado, otherwise don't buy it.
What is turbinado?
Turbinado is the first extraction from the sugar cane.
Is that the raw sugar?
That's raw sugar.
Oh, so it's
Sugar
called
in the raw.
It's called
Turbinado, turbinado. Okay, and it's a very pale brown color, and that's the natural color of, really good quality. First extraction sugar.
And that sugar is raw sugar?
And that's sugar, yeah, sugar in the raw. Okay, stress. We all know that stress is a huge factor in weight gain. Because what happens when we get stressed out? We eat, right, okay. And then what happens when we eat? What does it do to one of our hormone levels? Raises cortisol, exactly, very good. And that's what we're trying to avoid. You want to keep your cortisol levels down, you don't want to elevate your cortisol. Another, more recently they found is with elevated cortisol, you very quickly start to break down muscle. Okay, so that's another motivation to really work on that cortisol level. So you could be doing a tremendous amount of exercising, and then you have all that stress, and whammo, you're breaking down muscle. Okay, so that's another factor to keep in mind.
So exercise not being a stress, just other types of stresses?
It could be emotional stress. It could be too much physical exercising stress too.
Overtraining.
Overtraining absolutely will start breaking down muscle. Definitely. So there's definitely a balance. Okay. Yes.
Is there some supplement you take for supportive?
To lower cortisol? Yeah, there are definitely supplements in the market that really target reducing cortisol. I mean, the ones that I usually recommend, like for instance, Metagenics is one really good brand that does a very good cortisol, lowering AM formula. There's also another product called Cortiguard from North American Pharmacal out of Connecticut. They have a very good product. And then there's also adrenal complex, which you get from, or adaptogen complex from a company called Premier Research Labs.